When it comes to taking notes, I think one question that doesn't get enough attention is how to decide what actually makes it onto the page. That's the question that we're going to explore today. Let's get into it. As lifelong learners, the source of the information that we take in and take notes on is often changing. Sometimes it's a book that you're reading, other times a video that you're watching. Maybe you're attending a live event or workshop, or listening to a podcast, or maybe having an important conversation during a meeting at work. In any of those situations, what you face as the note taker is an onslaught of ideas, usually coming at you at a pretty quick pace. And your job is to take those ideas and do something meaningful with them. That can be a challenge when you're dealing with so many ideas. So the thing that I would like to help you with today is come up with a system or some questions to ask yourself to help you decide which of those ideas to capture. What we'll be doing here then is creating a filter for important ideas so that those are the ones you capture and the others you don't worry about. To help us out with that, let's zoom in on that funnel. The way I see it, there are 4 distinct places where any idea can go. Those that you have identified to be important and want to remember, those actually make it onto the note-taking surface. And since what we focus on here at Verbal to Visual is sketching out ideas, that capture often takes the form of a sketch, with plenty of supporting words as well, but some sort of a visual form to help you better remember whatever it is that you're learning. Some other ideas, the ones that are weird or maybe resonate on an emotional level, those will make it into your memory even if you don't do any sort of capture. Others that don't strike you as interesting, that don't stand out, those can fall into the trash. Those ones are kind of nice because it's relieving to not have to worry about them anymore. This 4th category might be the most helpful though. It's a parking lot. The idea here is that you might want to explicitly create a space for yourself where you can jot down and quickly capture ideas that you're not sure yet if they're important enough to live within your notes, to carry with you wherever your notebook lives. What you would do at the end of a note-taking session then, once you've finished the chapter or get to the end of the podcast or the meeting ends. At that point, you can decide which ideas in the parking lot you want to incorporate into your notes and which you can throw into the trash. And even though there are 4 options here, you really only have to choose from 3 when you're actively in the note-taking process. Those that are clearly important make it directly into your notes. Those that aren't, you let fly on by and fate decide whether they happen to land in your memory or in the trash. And then for those that might be important, but you're not totally sure, those you add to the parking lot until the end of that note-taking session when it'll be easier to decide what to do with them. And what's helpful about taking notes in general, but specifically about adding some sketches, some visual representations to your notes, those words and sketches on the page will help to trigger other things that happened in that book or that podcast or that meeting that live only in your memory, which is another reason why you should never try to capture everything, just those pieces that are most critical and that might remind you of some of the other details. So these are the 4 endpoints of that funnel, and hopefully this gives you a little bit of a feel for how the filtering process might occur, but we still haven't tackled the most important question yet. How do you actually decide which ideas to capture? One approach that has already come up is paying attention to those things that make you feel something, when there's emotional resonance. If some idea or some story leads to an emotional reaction, that's probably a sign that it's important to you in some way, and therefore worth capturing. And while yes, that emotional engagement might help it to stick in your memory without you capturing it, but there's no guarantee of that. So whenever I'm taking notes on something like an hour-long podcast conversation, this is the filter that I most frequently use. I only capture those ideas that are exciting or interesting or heartwarming, and if I don't feel anything about any segment of the conversation, I just let that go. In other cases, you might be a little bit more focused on getting a particular thing out of whatever media it is that you're consuming. If that's the case, you might try creating a guiding question for yourself before you even dig into that material. Identify what question you would like to have answered, and then let that be the filter as you're taking notes. If the current thing being discussed is related to that question, then capture it. If it's not, then don't. A related approach that's a little bit more zoomed out is maybe identifying your bigger picture why. Why is it that you picked up this book in the first place? Why are you listening to this particular podcast? Why are you in this meeting today? Keeping that why top of mind will also help you to decide what's worth getting on the record and what isn't. Another approach that I think works particularly well when you're learning how to do something new, anything kind of in the realm of self-help, and then also any sort of meeting situations, you could just focus on those ideas that are actionable, the follow-up actions that you might like to take based on what you're consuming or what's going on in the meeting. What I like about that filter is that it helps you move from ideas into action, which is often one of the reasons you're probably taking notes anyway, to help you decide how you might want to live your life over the next week or month or year. Another thing you might pay attention to is simple repetition. If a particular concept or story comes up multiple times, that likely is an indication of its significance. So be sure to get that one down. You could also choose to focus on just the unfamiliar, the things that are new to you. This is a helpful approach if you tend to read books or listen to podcasts that are kind of in the same category. Maybe it's business development or personal development, and maybe 75% of the ideas that come up you're already familiar with. Don't worry about capturing those. Focus instead on that 25% that's newer. As one final example of a helpful filter, maybe you just listen for stories. What's great about any individual story that maybe is related in a book or spoken aloud in a podcast, it's often just a single story that can remind you of the concepts that were being explored or the ultimate lesson that was learned because of that story. So if you focus less on the abstract ideas that come up and more on the concrete stories, I think that would make for an interesting set of notes. The nice thing about these types of filters is that you don't have to choose just one. You could pick anywhere from a few of these to all of them to help guide your note-taking. With that said, I would suggest having just one or two of these top of mind as you go into the note-taking session. Which brings us to our final diagram for the day. I think it's worth taking a look at the whole process here and identifying things that you might do before the note-taking session, before you're inundated with ideas, what you do during the note-taking session, and then what you do at the end of it. As a preparatory activity, you might pick your filters from the ones I just described and any others that you feel might be helpful. Then, of course, organize your materials. Make sure you've got the notebook and pens or tablet and stylus that you'll need, so you're not searching for the right tool in the middle of the action. And make sure you've set up a parking lot for yourself. That could look like sticky notes that go on the side of the board instead of marks on it, or maybe some scratch paper to the side of your sketchbook. Have some sort of a space for those ideas that you're not sure are worth making it into your notes yet. And then during the note-taking process itself, make sure you've got some strategies for dealing with a quick information flow. Even if your plan is to sketch out as many ideas as possible, don't be afraid to take some quick bullet point notes when those ideas are coming fast. In the digital setting, you might make use of layers to create some more space for yourself or give you some flexibility with what you do, with what you're capturing. And don't be afraid to simply jot down words in the moment, the key phrases that you're listening for, and leave some blank space next to it to come back later and add in a sketch. And then once the new ideas have stopped coming your way and you have the chance to breathe, then you can go back and emphasize the essential. Maybe hop in with a highlighter to identify what you now know to be the biggest takeaways for you, or maybe a thicker pen to go bold the key phrases. This is also when you'll want to decide what to do with the elements in your parking lot if you haven't already. And then take a second to decide what you might want to do differently next time. Did the particular filter you used work well? Did your materials suit your needs? And how about your approach for laying out ideas? Are they a cluttered mess or have some helpful structure? I think that by paying attention to this full process here and identifying those actions and approaches that are helpful to you in each of those stages, I think that will help you get the most out of whatever it is you're consuming and whatever important conversations you're having with others. I would love to hear what other types of filters you found to be handy. So do drop those in a comment down below, or let me know which of the ones that I described most resonates with you. And if you'd like to incorporate some visuals into your note-taking process to help help make the ideas you capture a little bit more sticky, then come join us inside Verbal to Visual. There you'll find a bunch of complete at your own pace online courses to help you build and use your sketchnoting skills in all sorts of useful ways. And you'll find a global community of visual thinkers like you who are exploring interesting topics and doing important work and using visuals as a primary tool to support those efforts. You can learn more and sign up at verbaltovisual.com. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the first video with this new backdrop. I thought I'd make my home office in the basement here a little bit less dreary and a little bit more fun and visual. With that, bye for today. Looking forward to sharing more ideas with you next time. Till then.